There's not a text thread because you got to be careful these days in this day and age, especially since he's accused of terrorism. But there's like a looking on the Instagram and the memes, and you're like, right on.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that you could talk about with someone in person, but you want to avoid having anything in writing. You don't want to tweet anything about it, no matter how funny it might
Yeah,
be.
absolutely not. But he is a striking young man. Striking.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of DC, and Eddie Vedder comes out. And he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and you're listening to Dispatches from Planet Albany, a WCNY podcast about power and politics in state government. To kick off our third season of the show, we're joined by my de facto co-host at this point, the recently married Shontell Smith, head of the New York
Plumber.
practice.
Plumber.
Are you changing
Shontell
the name?
Plumber. I respect my head of household. I will be changing my name. I just need to do it with the state. Yes.
So for now, though, still Shontell Smith, head of the New York
Yes.
practice for Tusk Strategies, where she is also a partner. Shontell, Happy New Year, and thanks for making the time.
I just appreciate that you could get my title right, and I just thank you. Thank you,
New
David.
New Year, new me.
All right.
And I guess sticking with that vein of a new year, I'm curious if you have any New Year's resolutions for Planet Albany, or whether maybe you used to make resolutions when you worked in the state Senate. Like, this is the year I'm not going to sleep on my couch in the office anymore, or something like that.
I don't do resolutions, I do vision boards. That's number one. Number two, this year, my vision for Albany is just crank up the competition amongst Albany lobbyists. Like, get ready, folks. The ban is off. Chantelli's in the streets, and you all better be ready because, I know Albany and I will be putting my foot on everybody's neck. So get ready for this session.
And for listeners who don't know, you're referring to the 2 years you've had to sit on the bench after leaving the Senate?
I had to sit on the bench and watch all this stuff happen, and now I'm in the streets. So I look forward to be working for the people and my clients.
Have you thought at all about what that actually looks like? Are we going to see you in the halls of the Capitol more than the last 2 years?
Well, number one, I work at Tusk Strategies. We're not a lobbying firm. We are multifaceted. We do many things. We do comms. I don't want to get into it, but we're a great firm. Look us up on the website. I will not be like in Albany every day, like, hey, is this bill on the active list? But my people will be deployed.
You're a general.
Always been. I've always been. So
Uh,
my people will be in the streets.
So I've been thinking about this for longer than just the start of the new year. So I don't know if this counts as my New Year's resolution, but I plan on being a tougher interview for politicians in 2025. I want to be just more incredulous and less willing to nod my head through an answer that is making me internally want to
Yes.
explode. You think I'll still be able to get guests on the show, though, if I'm doing that kind of stuff?
Yes. Like everybody, we're in this age where people want honesty and transparency. I think that's why you also put me on the show because,
Hmm.
like, I give zero, I don't care. I keep it real for the most part, unless it's detrimental to my business. But for the most part, I keep it real. I think right now we're having a disconnect between the public and electeds. It's interesting because, like, my husband has nothing to do with politics. And when things happen, he's like, I don't get this. Why is this? And like, there's always a backstory, but the average New Yorker who's not in this bubble does not understand. And I just think there needs to be more of like holding people's feet to the fire and being like, what are you doing? Like, come on. So I look forward to it.
Well, I think it's mostly just, and I think about this in terms of the Hochul administration, people who come on the show and give me the company line in response to any sort of question, and I let them do their speech. And I always wonder how much of that I should allow versus, hang on, that wasn't my question, or let's get to the point. We got lives to live.
I will say this as a staffer, the ex-staffer, sometimes people would say the line and you'd be like, ugh, you'd roll your eyes and be like the company line. But sometimes the company line really is what's going on or the status or whatever.
Hmm.
But I think you can respectfully push back and be like, wait a minute. Like if you have facts and figures that counter that, I do think as a journalist, it's okay to push. Now, I think when you get rude and disrespectful, that's when people will be like, that dude is a I'm trying not to curse as much on the podcast. So that's why I'm not using my normal language. But, I think if you do it respectfully, I think people will respect you and they'll come on the show.
Okay. Well, I want to turn to some things that have been in the news lately. And in the last month, we've had two high-profile examples of violence that were caught on camera, including prison guards in central New York murdering an inmate and a woman getting lit on fire on the subway. Do you think either or both of these instances will be a major factor in determining what actually happens in the 2025 legislative session? I know there's been discussion from the governor about what she wants to do in response to both instances, but are you thinking that either of these will be a major focus of budget negotiations or standalone legislation?
Now, I want to be clear. This is upstate Shanti. I do have an apartment in Brooklyn and I do take the subway once in a while, but I prefer Ubers because I see something like what's been happening. Like before I came on the show, I was just like Googling like subway stuff. So like December 22nd, the woman's lit on fire. December 31st, this guy gets shoved
Yeah.
into like a train. And then there were like two stabbings like yesterday or something. Two individuals got stabbed. So when you are not from New York and you have not taken the subway your whole life, this is alarming. People, of course, are going to blame bail and people are going to blame the criminal justice system because, oh, us liberal Democrats. This is actually more a mental health thing more than anything.
And that's how it's being
And
framed by the governor and mayor of New York City.
it's not crime. The people that are doing this, there's an underlining mental health issue. From the subway stuff, mental health will be, I pray, prioritize this session because what we're finding, it's just not a criminal thing. It's these people have some mental health issues which cause them to do certain things. And I just want to be clear, not everybody with a
Right.
mental health issue is violent. But with this spike of violence, it doesn't matter if you have the National Guard and all this stuff. You need trained professionals to help these people. And I hope that's something that is considered.
Do you think the Democratic majorities, though, have an appetite for making it easier to have people involuntarily committed? Because they would say, well, we already did Kendra's law, so there's already the authority out there, and these are majorities that are
The,
usually loath to make it more difficult to
I
criminalize people.
and that is something that they're going to have to look in. Kendra's law, because I remember when my family member was institutionalized, Kendra's law has been the law for I think since like 1970.
About
I don't
20
know.
years.
It's been the law for a while. It is still very difficult to get someone institutionalized. Like I remember like my family member we had to go to court and like they had an attorney. I know my family didn't pay for the attorney. The state will provide someone with an attorney when there's these hearings to determine someone's like competence and like their mental health. So yes, there is laws on the books, but that doesn't mean it's not time to update and reflect and consider. And if you're not going to change Kendra's law, well, then what are you doing? Are you putting extra money for mental health funding? There are these mental health mobile crisis units.
Right.
Are we putting money towards those? If you don't want to put them in an institution, what are you doing? Like, back it up. People will be like, no, we don't want to institutionalize them. Well, then what is the solution and what do you want to do? And it can't be like watching these people push people and light people on fire and do all types of crazy shit. Like there has to be a solution. And yes, the average New Yorker who's lived in New York City and been on the train their whole life, they may not be fazed by that. But who's going to be fazed by that are the business people. They're
The
going to be
tourists who
afraid to,
use the subway once or twice a year.
yeah, it's going to impact the economy.
And what about the prison side of things? We talked with the head of the Crime Corrections and Crime Victims Committee Chair, Julia Salazar, before
Love
this
her.
happened. And,
Sorry.
we were talking about what there might be an appetite to do in New York in the legislature, and she was optimistic about revisiting parole, revisiting the implementation of solitary confinement reforms. What do you think is actually possible, though, here in Albany to get done?
The solitary confinement changes were done under Andrew Cuomo. So this is a new governor. So I do think that, maybe Hochul will be open to it. The prison culture is interesting, but like if you care about all New Yorkers, there's going to be an investigation, Hopefully they can come up with some comprehensive legislative package that addresses this like inmate safety. And I just want to be clear, I don't think that all correction officers are killing people and beating the shit out of them. But like it's telling that we only knew about the abuse because of 30 minutes of standby recording that had that not been part of their camera, we would have never known about this. So we don't even know how rampant this is going on in, jails and stuff like that. So there has to be some type of investigation, not like, oh, this happened on Sunday and like Tuesday I'm coming out with my list of things. Like there has to be a comprehensive review.
Well, before we turn our attention to some lighter fare, I want to give a shout out to two of our underwriters on the labor
Oh,
side of things.
you mean sponsors, baby.
Well, we're a classy public radio joint, so we don't say sponsors, we say
It's so
underwriters.
it's so interesting how you can say underwriter, but like God forbid if like a legislative cause was like backed by somebody, it'd be like crazy.
I'm okay saying we're backed by New York State United Teachers as well as New York State AFL-CIO, and turning.
Unions. So do you only, it's interesting that these are unions. I am pro union, but like, do you only get sponsorship from unions or are you open to private sponsorship?
We are open to the Pinkertons. We are open to union-free shops, right to
Dave,
farm organizations.
I just want to say there's a young prophet named Meek Mill that says scared money don't make no money. So if you want to make some money, don't be scared. Say we need some sponsors and you're looking forward to whatever comes your way.
On that note, how are you processing the political maneuvering in recent weeks by Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, who's
Okay,
positioning himself as a potential challenger to Governor
let
Hochul
me
in
close my
2026?
book because
And
I am I'm
let
so
me finish the lead up. And we also have Bronx Congressman Richie Torres, who also wants to be part of this conversation, as well as the race for mayor of the Big Apple, head of the DNC, and queen of the Rose Bowl parade too, or whatever they can run for, I guess.
I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed. So some of this, I don't care what anybody says, fight me on Twitter. I believe some of this is sexism. Say what you want about the governor. People have their criticism of the governor. She is a workhorse. David, she is a workhorse. She's all over the state. She like something happens Monday night, Tuesday morning, she's there like addressing it or trying to figure out a solution. I think it's very disingenuous to sit there and be like, hey, attacking. I want to be clear. I like, the lieutenant governor, but I do think this is treason. Like if I had a staffer or if I was a person in power and my number two is like looking around like, hey y'all, I'm open for business. If you want me to run against her, I'll run it. I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy. And I actually think it also, like if I'm looking at him, you got 2 more years in this job. So why are you trying to be out of decision making? If you think you can make an impact for this state, wouldn't you want to assist the governor and be part of her decision making
I think he's
and give
arguing
her
he's
an,
got nothing to lose, though, that he hasn't been part of the process the last 2 years. So how much worse could it possibly get the next 2 years for him?
I don't know, he'd be sitting with her when it's state of the state and other things. Like if you're not part of the process, this is my thing. You knew what you were getting yourself into. When
Yeah.
we accept jobs, we all know what our position is supposed to be in these jobs. If you think that you will be a better governor and you think you should run against her or you should be considered, what is she doing wrong and what would you do differently? It's easy to be at the sidelines and throw tomatoes and sit there and say, this person's bad. But what are you bringing to the table? And what are you saying? And what are you doing? Shit, I can sit here and talk about people all day if you gave me a 24-hour podcast. But like, is that really impacting change? Like, what are his ideas? What is
Yeah,
he?
and I couldn't tell you what they are. He's so vague. He
He,
comes on
he
our radio
big.
station. I talk about my my New Year's resolution. He's a perfect example of someone who I need to go, wait, hang on. You just spoke eloquently for 2.5 minutes, and I still have no idea what your position is on X, Y, or Z issue. And that's kind of been the same thing as he's been making this
Richie.
run. Yeah, same thing with Richie Torres. I mean, he kind of, puts a finger in the air in response to whatever the prevailing winds are, and Delgado tries to set himself up as a leader on these issues, but we still don't know where he stands on a variety of issues. And he won't come
I
on
would
our
ha
radio show to answer questions either.
I would have more respect if you're like, you know what? I don't rock with her. Resign from the position. If you feel that you're not being involved in decision making, resign from the position. And then if you have your like list of policies and stuff like that, and you really want to be considered to run, then do that. But I find it to be just disingenuous to sit there in your little ivory tower and sit there and say, oh, she's doing this bad, she's doing that bad. Like, it is hard. As someone who's been a part of numerous negotiations, it is hard to get a consensus among a legislative body and a governor. And it's not that easy. Now, I know everyone wants to say, like, I know my friend Melissa is going to kill me because she's going to be like, you're sucking up to the governor. I'm not. It's hard to come up with a legislative consensus. And I don't care if you're David Patterson, Andrew Cuomo, Kathy Hochul, Pataki, it's hard. If these people really want to run, they run. But for 2 years, I'm not going to listen to bullshit. I want to hear clear policies, clear stances, and what you're going to do that's different from the existing governor. I may not love everything about the governor currently, but one thing I will say, she tries. I think she realizes that there's a little disconnect. That's why she's trying to do more things with like real people, like real everyday New Yorkers, and not. She's still doing stuff with the political elite.
Like with the inflation refund checks, yeah, going to the grocery store.
I hate the grocery store. My husband does all the grocery shopping. You think I'm walking around dusty ass Crossgates Mall talking to people? Like, when's the last time you've been to Crossgates Mall?
Probably the last time I had to go to the Apple store.
I went to Crossgates Mall for Christmas and it is
You're a glutton
not a
for
place.
punishment if you're going there for
Not,
Crossgates for
not a
Christmas.
place, not a place I want to be. I had my nieces and I was, I'm trying to be a good aunt. But like she's trying with the people. And she knows there's an affordability crisis, but also like she's limited.
In terms of what she can do, she's obviously prioritized for 2025 this inflation refund check, which has a price tag of about $3 billion.
$3 billion.
Do you think because this is kind of the only spending priority she's outlined, that this is something that she can get through the state legislature? Or do you imagine that it's ultimately going to take some other shape or have a smaller price tag or
She
bigger price tag moving forward?
No, I just want to be clear. This girl loves a free check. Like whenever, like we're still getting wedding gifts, and like whenever I see the knot on my bank account, I am excited. I love the star rebate check. However, $3 billion is a lot of money just to give a one-time 300 and $500 check.
Is that
And
how the
I do,
legislature's going to think about it?
yes. Let's give an example. They want housing. They want the voucher.
The Housing Access Voucher Program, 250 million.
She says no because of costs. They're going to be like, well, why can't you use some of the money from the 3 billion for vouchers? Why can't you use some of the money for increased childcare? I know people are trying to get increased money for like childcare credits and childcare tax returns. They're going to be
Child
like,
poverty efforts?
yeah, I mean, I think, if my boss, Bradley Tusk, was here, he'd say, spend more money in before and after school lunches. There's so many things that you can spend money on. So I think there'll be some form of a check, but I think the issue is that $3 billion, they're gonna want, like, I just know the legislature, they're gonna be like, well, if you want us to spend 3 billion on that, you have to dedicate some money to X, Y, and Z. Because you think about it, she already gave, I think she committed $1 billion to the city of Yes and housing in New York City.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, when you're negotiating budgets, in the budgets I negotiate, there's somewhere like extra of like maybe $2 to $4 billion, if that. Like there's not that much extra money after you do education funding, after you do health, and then whatever other money that you earn marked. We still have MTA, which is a shit show. And I just don't see them being like, okay, let's spend $3 billion on a one-time check. But then we have childcare, transportation, education funding. The cost of healthcare is high. We have a housing crisis. And she's like, but you get like a $300 check, which I love. I wouldn't be eligible because,
Yeah, I
mama.
was alarmed to hear that you qualify for Star. I was like, we need
Whoa,
to
whoa, whoa.
get
I
that money
qualified
back.
for STAR when I worked at the Senate.
Okay.
But at Tusk, Big Mama ain't qualifying for none of these government checks. So it's okay.
All right,
It's
I was gonna
okay.
have to call your school district to tell them to double check the paperwork they're
Uh,
getting from you.
no, no, no. So yeah. And I know the governor is not, what she's not going to do is tax the rich. So if
No.
you don't want to tax the rich and you have all these requests, her 3 billion will get shrunk down. There will be checks, but it won't be that much.
Well, coming back to the school funding, we have the Rockefeller report that came out in early December, which had a whole bunch of recommendations on how to change distribution of school aid, primarily the foundation aid, which counts for the bulk of the school aid dollars that go out. And the big change that they're recommending is this phased out of the hold harmless provision. We had the Senate Education Committee chair on the show already tell us this is DOA. The governor put out a statement basically saying this was not something she was supportive of, even though she was in early 2024. Do you think there's going to be any radical changes to the foundation aid formula in 2025? You're shaking your head no for listeners.
Oh, sorry. Because, like, let me tell you, you want to see members curse you out?
Right.
Like the calmest members. Like, imagine your calmest member. You want to see them cuss you out? F around and find out when it comes to education funding. Whether it's Long Island, where it's upstate, where it's New York City, education funding is such a big deal. I don't want to offend one of your sponsors, so I will be very careful in what I say in this segment about
No, go
education
for it.
funding.
Nice it. Let her rip.
We give so much money
Yeah,
to
more per
education,
pupil than any other state.
but like, what are we getting from these kids?
Less than
And you,
50% proficient in English and math, according to those
eh,
grade 3 through 8 tests.
I'm not a hater, so I'm just saying. But what I am saying is that you have to look at that. So you're investing all this money, you're not getting the return. To change education funding takes political courage that, like, I don't know if people are really ready for that. Because I'm telling you, you mess around with a Long Island district or you mess around in Westchester, please. You mess around with these districts, you're out of office. You're gone. You're gone. Last year when the governor said she was doing the hold harmless, I was like, please, I'll bet my salary this ain't happening because
Yeah.
nobody on an election year was going to change the funding for education funding. I think they'll do stuff like there's different factors that go into education
Yeah, you
funding,
can
like
update the poverty indexes, the census
yes,
information.
English is like as a second language numbers, things like
Yeah.
that. Maybe they'll add like some type of I don't know. But you're not going to fundamentally change. You're definitely not going to get rid of hold harmless. You're not fundamentally changing education funding. We are in too deep.
And if
It's
she
not happening.
did, if the governor did make that a priority, coming back to our previous conversation about primary challenges from Delgado and Torres, that's one of the ways that you actually get a real significant challenge is if you piss off a
100%.
union like NICET so that
100%.
they bail on you the way they did in
Ciao.
2014.
Mulgrew and Melinda will not have it. And
Right.
like, say what you want about the education union, say what you want. At the end of the day, they are a prime factor for elections.
Hmm.
And all union support is important. And I think they're going to make changes around the edges and they're going to be like, I love when they're like first in the nation or whatever, or, the spectacular update, which I commend. But like, you're not getting rid of some of these fundamentals.
Well, on that note, we've been speaking with the eventual
Wait,
Shontell. What
we're
did you want to
not
talk about?
my man Luigi. We're
Well,
not gonna talk
maybe
about
don't
my
phrase it. Maybe don't phrase it
but
that way.
but I'm a married woman, so it's not my man Luigi.
What would you like
But
to say about the alleged murderer of a health insurance CEO?
couple things. This got a couple comments. I thought the like parade once he came into New York, cap, it wasn't a good look. That was like cringe. I find this young man, I find the obsession with him captivating. It's captivating. There are no text threads about this because he is an alleged terrorist.
Hmm.
However, I just find it fascinating. Like the girls on TikTok and Twitter are losing their shit over this little dude. He is a striking individual. striking. And it's like effortlessly striking. And then I found out, okay, I've gone down a rabbit hole on this and then I'm done. Remember when he came to New York? Everyone was like, he got a haircut, his eyebrows were groomed, da, da, da. Apparently, like in the jails, that's like signaling to the new jail, like he's protected and taken care of. Did you see this? You didn't see this?
I did not. I have to say I'm probably consuming less content than you are.
Um, I'm sorry. Well, I've been on a honeymoon for like a month, so I'm like consuming a lot of
My
content.
Luigi is a plumber for N Nintendo, so I don't really
No, no,
know much
no.
about this
No,
guy.
no, no. I swear to God, like you gotta like Google this, but I read this on Twitter and then it was confirmed on TikTok. Like basically his
Confirmed
grooming.
on TikTok.
Yes,
Like it's
that's
the
my
New York Times.
listen. I'm really in 2025 trying to get rid of the haters of my life. Please don't make me put you in the hater box. But Twitter and TikTok sometimes is a valuable source of information. Maybe that's why these electeds need to, increase their hipness and just get on the talk and the Twitter. But anyways, they said his grooming was a sign of a respect. You should look this up. Okay, I'm gonna end with this. You ever see the movie John Q?
Yeah.
So, for those who haven't seen it, John Q, Denzel Washington has a kid, the kid needs a transplant or something like that. And like
Hmm.
insurance was like, fuck you, we're not paying. So, Denzel did what any respectable father would do. He held up the hospital and it was a whole big movie. But public sentiment went towards Denzel because everyone has a health insurance issue. I think Luigi is relatable for that reason. It's because everyone has been screwed by health insurance. I just want to say, not all health insurance people are bad, but some of them are not the nicest. And then they have record-breaking profits. And people are like I'm diabetic, like insulin, the cost of insulin's like insane. Well, not anymore because Governor Hochul took care of that last year.
Under certain state health insurance plans.
So, well, whatever. It's still an attempt. I don't see what like these health insurance companies, these other private health insurance companies needing on the good ship lollipop. But watch John Q. I'm obsessed with Luigi, so you need to start like reading up on him if you want me on your show moving
Well,
forward.
I am a John Q aficionado, and I can tell you that spoiler alert for listeners who haven't seen this like 20-year-old movie,
He
he
did go
gets
to
a
jail.
well, yeah, because he gets acquitted of murder, but does go to jail for kidnapping and false imprisonment. So
Whatever. I mean, but his kid did get that transplant.
yes, that should be the lesson,
Remember?
folks. We've been speaking with Shontell Smith. She's eventually going to be Shontell Plummer. She's the head of the New York practice for Tusk Strategies, where she's also a partner. And you're going to want to tune in on January 14th when
Oh
she will be
yeah.
co-headlining our State of
Ow.
the State coverage for New York Now. That'll be live coverage. So hopefully we'll have an update on Luigi then.
David, have you ever thought about doing like call-in questions one time? Like we should do like call-in questions one day. We should do a segment where it's like ask them anything. And then like they DM you some questions. And then we
Listeners,
don't
that's your
look
call to action. You
and
can
we don't look at it.
give us a call, and we'll post the number in the
Well, I don't know
description
if we
of
want
the
to do I
show,
don't know if we want to do calls because I got haters out there. So I
and
don't
we'll
know if I
try
want
to
to do calls.
answer all the questions that you have for me and Chantel. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And wait, I just want to say one more thing. When Luigi was going into the jail, he was screaming something like, there's more to the story. There's more to this story. Because the way he just like killed the guy, got on the Lake City bike, as you see, I'm down a rabbit hole, got on the city bike, left a notebook like with Monopoly money, like he's playing with us. We'll see. To be determined. I can't wait. TBD. Oh God. Okay.